What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to talk about maybe the most important currency that you have. And it's also the one that the most people and things are trying to steal from you. And that is your focus, your concentration. In technology, generally, you will be doing problem solving of some kind or another. Very rarely do you have problem X to solve, and it's just a matter of remembering the steps to take and the commands to run. That's like, maybe as a junior sysadmin, that's appropriate. You know, you've got some run book or playbook that you're going to use for a certain task. Someone else has come up and written that playbook, and you just have to do it step by step. And if something goes wrong, you do a bit of basic troubleshooting, and you're on your way. Well, as you do more complex things, or, you know, if you're not starting in a junior position, but you're kind of starting your own business, your own product, building something, you kind of play a more senior role in those cases, which is actually why I recommend building something for beginners. It's difficult and it will often seem impossible, but the most important thing is that it will kind of force you to think in a way that's much more senior than your skill set actually is, and that will kind of inform everything you do and make you much faster at learning things. And I should do a whole video on that. Anyway, as you focus on building something, and you have to think in a kind of more senior way where you're actually solving a hard problem and there's no quick, easy, correct answer that you can find with a couple Google searches. It's a lot more about evaluating technologies, about building a prototype, about thinking about all these kind of complicated aspects of what you're doing that aren't immediately apparent, like security implications, storage, cost implications of things you're doing. Could go on and on. But the idea is your focus is what's really important. When you're a beginner and you're running some playbook and you leave off at step 4 and you go get a Diet Coke from the fridge and you come back to your desk, you just kind of start at step 5 and continue. But later on, when you're doing this more kind of mentally taxing thing of number crunching, thinking, working things out conceptually, learning a lot of new things several times a day to kind of evaluate solutions and technologies, your concentration becomes the most valuable asset you have. If you are in a noisy office, you might just get half as much work done as someone who is or if you were in a quiet office alone, isolated from interruptions and sound. Half as much. I'm not exaggerating. Or less even. Quick interruption can cost you like 45 minutes of lost concentration and slowly making some mistakes and getting back into what you were doing. Very often interruptions cause you to introduce new bugs into software you're writing. As soon as you get back to it, you think, oh, I remember where I left off, and then you start making mistakes until you're fully kind of in it again. I think I'm not a scientist. This is not backed by studies, but I think one of the reasons might be that it takes so long to kind of get an accurate model of the problem you're working on loaded up into your head, almost like RAM, that, you know, evicting some of that and putting in whatever you need to deal with the interruption makes it incredibly hard to see which part of your mental model has changed and like what you've forgotten, basically. So you almost can't trust your brain for a second after an interruption, even though you'll feel like you still know what you're doing and understand where you left off. One of the things that you'll have to learn to do if you do this professionally is how to guard your concentration. And that means how to control interruptions. That means how to deal with interruptions from teammates that need information, how to schedule things like meetings and other stuff around to make sure that you've got clean blocks of uninterrupted time where no one's looking for you, no one's asking you anything, no one's calling you. It's safe for you to ignore your email, and you can just work on what you're working on. By doing that, you can become much more productive with, you know, two-hour blocks of uninterrupted work throughout the day than most people are with one very interrupted 8-hour block. Even if they have more working time, those people will still be less productive than you, most likely, because you've made sure that your mind is like ready to work for 2 hours straight. Now, you can vary the time. There's plenty of different methods for this. There's like a Pomodoro method and whatever. You can pick whatever framework works for you. I'm just talking about the general concept of the thing here, which is keep an eye on your concentration and how much of it you can build up. It's like something that, like a train that starts moving very slowly. And unfortunately, it stops very quickly, that train, and it's very hard to get moving again. How does this relate to you if you're a beginner? Well, there are so many technologies to learn and so many things that you'll likely be interested in that one of the things that can really help is to kind of respect your capacity to focus for an extended period of time. If you notice yourself, let's say it's a weekend, you finally have some time to learn a new technology or play with some new thing on a server that you're renting, that's great. But if you notice that after 6 hours or something, your concentration is waning, or it's midnight and you're like, oh, just one more thing, I'm just going to get this one more thing done. If you notice that, you're probably kidding yourself if you think you're still going to be productive. I can't tell you how many nights I've wasted. Like, I could have gotten an extra 2 hours of sleep, but instead I stayed up until 1:30 or 2 because I was like, nah, if I can keep my eyes open, I can still work on this awesome thing I'm working on, so why wouldn't I? And in the end, in the morning, every time I wake up and I'm like, wow, I must have sat kind of staring at the screen or at some man page for like 10 minutes at a time because I was not getting anything done except for creating the occasional bug. Certainly not doing anything useful. So kind of respect the limits of your ability to concentrate and work around it. This is one thing that'll probably take you years to get a handle on, but if you're not, if you're in your 20s or 30s, you'll probably have already done enough other things that required concentration that you already have a kind of feel for it, and you can tell when you're starting to fade out, have trouble concentrating. If you don't already notice it during the day, start noticing when you're in flow, when you're concentrating. I guess you won't really notice when you're in flow because you'll be in flow and not thinking about anything else, but be conscious of the mistakes you're going to make once you start working on a task again after an interruption, and do as much as you can to schedule your day in some kind of time block that works for you so that you can guarantee some uninterrupted time for yourself where you can work in a concentrated and focused way. God, I'm starting to sound like somebody's mom. Well, make sure to eat your vegetables. But that's just the reality of it. I know it doesn't sound sexy or anything, but this is actually one of the most important things you can do when you get into this professionally, because it's one of the hardest things to replicate in a work environment is that incredible concentration you were able to have when you were like 16 in your mom's basement fucking around with Linux, because real life is harder than that. So, yeah, respect it. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you in the next one.